right, hello everybody. It is still January 6th and doing a second reading today. I might do a third and a fourth, so you're gonna see me in the same clothes for a while. Um, I have oh my goodness. Let me share this. All these journal entries and then my session on June 7th. You might not see a session for a while, so I can get through this. I think it might take an hour to do two each. So anyway, because I don't want it to be out of sync. So I'm just gonna get started. Okay. So June 3rd. So Sarge has been getting on me to get back on my bike, so I did. I did my stretches and sit-ups, and then I beat on Ted for quite some time. I played that song "Rich Girl" by Hall & Oates. You're a rich girl, and you. And I also played the Cadence song "I Want to Be an Airborne Ranger" because it was playing in my head over and over and over. So John suggested that I play the music while I beat on Ted, and I might get insights, and I do. Said as I was doing that, I remembered that where I was being raped by those military commanders was somewhere by base because I could hear the soldiers go by singing that song. Forgot about that. So I beat the heck out of Ted really to beat the music to the beat of the music, and I played the song twice and the cadence once. It was a solid 10 minutes of intense beating. I came in and rode my bike and I watched a show about child trafficking. It made me cry when they were talking about abortion. I asked God to forgive me. So after I got off my bike, I went out and beat Ted for about a minute so I wasn't sad anymore. Then I came in and cleaned house for the past 2 hours. Sarge was getting on me for that as well. I have not cleaned the house for 2 weeks. I'm glad that I did. It feels good that it's clean now. I just sat down to take a break. I smoked a cigarette. There's a difference now when I'm smoking. It crosses through my mind, but I'm okay putting it off. Then when I do, I have one, or this one, I should say, I had some more memories. The cigarette stimulated that feeling of electrocution in me again, and I was shaking. I remembered that when they were done with me in that underground area, I was coming up the stairs and my feet were really very heavy. And after I smoke, I noticed that my feet are heavy as well. When I got back up to the main floor, I walked past the guard that had replaced me on guard duty. He told me that I looked really wiped out and asked me what guard duty was like down there. I said, "You don't want to know." He pressed me a little more and I said, "I can't say because it's confidential or top secret or something like that." Then I went back to my room and sat down and went to bed. I remember always feeling incredibly tired and drained the next day after guard duty. I always just assumed it was staying up late and not getting enough sleep. Now I know better. It also occurred to me that taking the journal entries with each different part and placing it on their biographical slide, that over time I'd be able to go through the whole slide for one part and get a better understanding of what each one does. And that's this here. This is what I call their bio page. This is their old picture and their old name, their original state when I discover them. And then in time, I ask them, would you like a new name? Would you like a new picture? And if they say yes, then we go pick something else. But I started putting their journal entries, cut and paste them on here. This is from March, April, April again. So I just thought it would be useful. And also their sketches and the different things I've found online regarding that particular incident or people involved, real human people involved in that. So I can just go to one place and I've got everything I need to know about that part. So that's what I'm talking about there. As I was cleaning house and dusting the door frames, yes, I do that, it occurred to me that that comes from my dad, and keeping a very clean home comes from my dad as well. I found a picture of my mom from when I was under the age of 10, and she had a broom in her hand. She kept a very clean house as well. Angie and I both keep a very clean house. Mary, however, does not. I always thought it was funny that she waited until she would have guests, and then it would be a last minute sprint to clean the house. And she made her children and her husband help her. I always thought that was kind of crappy because she didn't work and had plenty of time for her to get it done when they were gone. I was also thinking about Mary. Now, Mary's my sister. Angie's the eldest, Mary's in the middle, and I'm the youngest. I was also thinking about Mary when I was cleaning, and it occurred to me that she really is the one of the three of us that is obsessed with having money and a comfortable life and status, etc., etc. She really did identify with the perpetrators and wanted to have the power position. I was also thinking about Angie and that this new relationship with her boyfriend has her very excited and happy. But at the same time, the wounded children in her are very nervous and scared. She called me this morning because Ray did not text her, and that was their routine. She was really freaked out. I told her it's probably just a little PTSD from the last guy. I told her she should talk to Ray and let him know that story again about the last boyfriend and what happened, and that because of that, it makes her overly nervous when she doesn't hear from him. I also told her that over time, the more comfortable and secure she feels with him, that the fear and anxiety of not hearing from him for one day would probably dissipate. I also remembered my prayer to God after Mom died, that if he could just send her the love of her life before she died, I would be very grateful to him. I hope that this is the one. She deserves it. My fear for her is that if and when she does get married to him and gets comfortable, that her wounded children will start to cry out and Ray is not going to understand it. There's going to come a point when I'm going to have to talk to him about it. It also occurred to me that if Angie ever approaches me wanting to know anything about Dad sexually abusing me, that I'm going to ask her, do you really want to know? Do you want the truth or do you want something comfortable? That will be when I'll know if she's ready to talk about it. I also just remembered that as Anne, that Raggedy Ann doll, was there laying there being a rag doll and the commanders were raping us, platoons were going by singing the cadence, I want to be an airborne ranger. But I was wishing and praying that those brave ranger soldiers would come in and rescue us. Again, I believe that's why I chose Chris, because my husband is a ranger. I also remembered that taxi ride the sergeant would take me on. All they did was drive around in circles because we wound up back at the base again. I think it was to fool me into thinking we were going somewhere else. But after everything was over, I just walked back to my barracks. I was thinking on the walk back to my barracks that those airborne rangers, if they only knew what was going on, why didn't they come in and rescue us? They didn't know. Nobody knew. I didn't even know the next morning. So I just sat down and did the red light therapy on my eyes. As I was laying there, I started having images in my mind of demons. They were coalescing in that red light, several different images. And the images were very similar to the new painting that Prince Charles has done, where it's all red like blood all over the place with a face kind of in the middle of it. That's similar to what I saw here. And I'll finish this. The last one was an image of an adult demon. At first, I thought, kissing a child demon, a man and a girl. I thought to myself, is that an adult with a demon in them, putting their mouth over mine and putting a demon inside of me, or pulling the demon that was inside me into themselves? I don't know. But it was something like that. I realized that all of these different images that I saw were different demons I saw in childhood, except they were not placed in time or space. They were just entities that were evil that I saw. Now, when I show you the picture of this Prince Charles thing, I'm sure you all have seen it. They've put it on the news, from time to time since they've announced it. But this was what I saw in my mind's eye. Let me go to Google Images. Portrait of, oh, I should say King Charles. I mean, look at this thing. It's disgusting, but in my mind's eye, that's how I saw the demons. It's just this red insanity because I'm sitting under the red light. And, you know, yeah. So this is what our prince thinks needs to be his portrait. And look at what you can see perfectly clearly, a monarch butterfly. So I'm sure I doubt that he's monarch trained, but they put that on there for the rest of us to see. I never even noticed that thing there. Anyway, so that's the picture that I was thinking about when I saw these images of these demons. Gosh darn it, now it's too. Oh well, I gotta move it. Okay, sorry. So that's that journal entry. Not as long as the last one. And so the next one is, oops, come on now. The next one is June 3rd again. I think this is anyway. So I just about went into absolute panic. I was listening to one of Emma's shows about a woman who was a Mormon in SRA, and as an adult, she had a husband handler and many teen foster children. She talked about loving them and supporting them and providing them with a better life. She didn't know one of her alters was triggered with keywords to abuse them. In doing so, those children would get points in the cult. When she mentioned that, it suddenly occurred to me, oh my God, when I would wake up Joe in the middle of the night to take him to go to the bathroom, did I abuse him? Now, because he had a mother who was a crackhead, basically, when my husband met her, and she did not take care of him very well. So I met him at 4 years old, and he was still not potty trained. So by the time I think he was so yeah, I think I met him at 4.5. So by the time he was 5, I thought, well, I'm going to start waking him up in the middle of the night, take him to the bathroom. And, you wake up a little boy, like that, and you walk him to the bathroom. They're still half asleep. And he would stand there. And I would get behind him and not look, but I would pull his pants down and push on his bladder to start training him to pee in the toilet at night. And so that's what was going through my head. I thought, oh my God, did I do something? Oh, flipping out. I had a flash of an image of my hand on a small penis. Now, it wasn't him, my stepson's, but I was horrified and panicking. Had I abused Joe? If that was the case, that would make Chris my handler. My whole world was starting to crumble apart. I could never stay with him if that was true. So I laid down to go to bed thinking about this, begging Jesus for it to not be true, and how horrified I would be if it was true. It would explain his behavior, pulling away from me and ignoring me, no pictures, etc. It would explain all those things. His father drinking too much and me raping him, but I didn't. The horror of it. I started to cry. And then I said something that woman on Emma's show said. I rebuke the shame. I rebuke the shame. I was made to do these things. So I asked my parts, if it is true, please show me. And if it is not true, then please show me that. I kept thinking perhaps it was an analytical overlay. But I also did not want to deny a part that was trying to show me something. That would betray them all. Now, I don't know if you know what an analytical overlay is, but I learned about it from an interview of a man who did um, remote viewing. And he was talking about anybody can remote view and how they train them to do so. And how there is a certain aspect where, like, if you see red and blue and a square image, you might assume it's a flag, but it's not. It could be just a red bottle and a blue bottle sitting on a table. Red and blue and a square object. So he was talking about how they had to train themselves when they got that analytical overlay to just jot it down and put it to the side and continue on. And I have discovered that in some of my memories, I will have analytical overlay because I'm not ready yet to confront the horrible thing. Like, as an example, that ritual where my grandmother and that teenage girl, they had their hands over mine and we disemboweled and killed that baby. When I first saw that image, I thought it was a cat because my mind couldn't accept that it was a baby. It wasn't until I think a week later and I was rewriting it again, I got more details. I realized, oh my goodness, that was a baby. So that's what analytical overlay is. Shortly after that, I remembered Finnegan, who is the part in me who was trained to use knives and to kill. Would go out, oh, that's right, would go out and put a knife at Chris's throat when he was drunk and passed out. Finnegan wanted to scare him into treating me better. After I'd told Chris what I needed to, then I would come back to my room. I remembered once being in the doorway to Joe's room thinking about fondling him. That's what we do, fondle and slice. This is Finnegan thinking here. But then Finnegan realized that no, this is the wrong order. We did not cut. Plus, he's lying in bed, not on stage. It's dark here and stage light's there. Finnegan was confused. Eventually, Finnegan turned and went back to bed. So what happened was my part was popping up telling me that the thought crossed his mind, the part Finnegan, to abuse my stepson because or maybe it wasn't even Finnegan, it was probably another part. But I was starting to realize that and flipping out, thinking, oh my God, no, no, no. And so I'm writing about this, trying to sort it out. And it all came from watching that interview. I had to compare the images in my mind. My hand was much larger compared to the penis I was touching. I started to look at my hand and see how big it was. It was not an adult hand. It was the hand of a 7 or 8-year-old girl on the penis of a 3 to 4-year-old boy, sometimes infants. I got good at arousing them. I wanted to get it over with, but they always wanted to drag it out, a better show. I began to see part of what Finnegan did. I recalled an, oh, I need to, well, I recalled an image of children lined up on stage. Dancer, another part, would do a seductive dance in front of them. I was dressed as a boy seducing boys. Yuck. Sometimes I would give them blowjobs. Oh, I forgot all about this with you, Finnegan. And it's funny because just the other day I wrote him down to dive into, and here we go. It's like Finnegan knew his journal reading was coming up, so I'll just jot down here, fondling. Actually, the date of this journal entry, so I can refer back to it. I was dressed as a boy seducing boys. Yuck, sometimes I would give them blowjobs. Most of the children were dark skinned. Then I would get behind them and I would fondle them and get them to orgasm. In that moment, I would slice their throat one by one. The audience loved this. This was filmed. Then the blood girl would come and collect the blood and take away the body and prepare it for ingesting. We would all eat, drink, and orgy. Kitten and Kevin were raped. Those are my sex slaves. Dancer did the seduction and raping. So Finnegan did the slicing. So this is a dancer. I have to figure this out. I'm so relieved to have not hurt Joe. The children on stage had pants on. They were tied wrists and ankles to the back of blood-stained wooden chairs. As I did my seductive dance, I would pull down their pants. That's when they would experience shame. I could see it come upon them. Then I would give them a blowjob, more shame. Some closed their eyes, some looked away or up. Then I went behind them to finish it off. Plus all the terror leading up to it. Ultimate pleasure for the audience. I would take a bow. Dancer would smoke while she was seducing, sometimes would blow smoke in the victim's face. They would cough. She did it more. She is a girl dressed as a boy wearing a strap-on dildo for raping boys. Also grabbed her dick and swaggered and cussing like a man. Talk about confused. She wants to be dancer, not this. I bought light cigarettes and they are white. This is what dancer was given to be seductive. I forgot all of that stuff, so I've got to flesh all those parts out. Acknowledge them and give them existence and new life and heal them one by one. So, okay, dancer was the seductress, and then there's another part in there that I was unaware of that was the sexual part, and then Finnegan came and killed. Okay, so I can get that straight in my head. And the fourth. Now, this, I'm not going to read through them, but what it was is John and I started talking about parts, and I think I mentioned this at the last journal, at the end of the last journal entry, is that basically, can you have a part that has not been traumatized? Because, I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah, you're traumatized and you split and you have a part. But I kept thinking, well, consciously, I have parts that I know about. I switch in and out of them all day. I got the wife part, the cook part, the plant part, the gardener, the cleaner, the house maintenance, the one that goes shopping, the one that drives. I'm like, these parts don't have traumas, but they're parts of me, and I move in and out of them all day. If I was a mother, you're switching in and out of your mother role. If you have a job, you're switching in and out of that. And even at your job, you might have 4 or 5 different roles that you play. Because I was in food service and retail, so I could be a cashier, I could be a manager. I was actually management, but if they needed a cashier, be a cashier. I was a manager. A manager, if you're in a meeting, you're in a meeting. If I'm doing inventory at midnight, there's a whole, each different role, and they're conscious. And so John and I were talking about this and this is what this journal entry is about. I'm talking about who I called caretaker Sally and caretaker mom. Now, my husband's mother, her back went out and it was bad, and she lived alone and she needed help. And everybody else in the family worked except me. So I said, Chris, of course, I said, I'll go up there. And I just volunteered, and I will say selfishly, it's because I had been to her house before, and I wouldn't say a hoarder's dream, but it was very cluttered, very full, 50 years of stuff. I mean, mail, you name it. And when we got up there, it was even worse. And so I had always imagined cleaning and organizing her house. And I thought, well, when I'm not taking care of her, I'm going to clean and organize that house because I'm not going to be able to tolerate it. So my organizer part and my caretaker part wanted to go help his mother. And I wanted to get to know her better as well. And I was up there for 4 months, and it was uh, January like 3rd of 2020. And I was supposed to be there for 8 weeks. Well, then COVID happened, and I couldn't bear the idea of leaving her alone in COVID. So I wound up staying for the first 2 months of COVID with her. And so a part was created, was born, and it was conscious. Now, you could say that there was a trauma, the trauma of COVID, but I don't know. This was a conscious part created. And then again, I came back home. COVID's in full swing. We're all in lockdown. My husband's working from home. And all of a sudden, I get a call from my mom, who's up in Canada, and her heart goes out. She can't breathe, she can't walk, she can't, and I'm flipping out because now it's my mom. I got to get to Canada during COVID. I got to get on airplanes. I got to cross the border. I got to go through, all the COVID nonsense. And so, yeah, it was a trauma, but not like, being in an SRA ritual and raped and all that. So that's the story of this. And so I started listing out and a couple of cats named Tom and Jerry, which do I have a picture? No, it's in the other room. I was going to show you a picture of them. They're so cute. They've been gone for like 20 years now, but I was like, I have a Tom and Jerry part because this cat, Tommy, I was in Dallas, stressed out. I remember I had the day off and I fell asleep on the couch, and the cat crawled up on me and laid on my chest, and we were heart to heart. And I was just breathing and relaxing and loving him. And in that moment, I felt my heart open. And I want to say for the first time in my life, I'd never felt my heart open that much and feel this exchange of loving energy between me and an animal I know, but it had never happened in my life. And so a part was born, and it was sweet and it was beautiful and it was wonderful. And then I was later on able to do that with Jerry. So there was a conscious part created, and this was the story of them. And I kept thinking about it. Well, how does that all, how are parts created? It can't just be through trauma. Because it was from that experience with my cats, that I learned how to open my heart. And that's a big deal. It was a part. It wasn't a trauma part, but it was a part that was powerful nonetheless. So that's what I was talking to Jon about. So I'll get to the next journal. And again, Taffy was my childhood dog, and I go through the different incidents as a child with her, and how when Dad would come after me, Taffy would get in front and bare her teeth and keep him off me. And so Taffy is a part that's uh, aggressive, defensive aggressive, and doesn't, wants to fight that perpetrator, but it's a part of me. It's the fighter in me. It's a part. And could you say that this was traumatic, my dad coming after me? Well, yeah, maybe at a -1, -2, but by the time he got me and took me downstairs, it was worse. So I'm thinking about conscious parts at the positive 0 to 10, and I'm thinking about, the subconscious parts, the ones that are like -1, -2s. And so Taffy was another part. And then I was thinking about spirit, the part that was born when I was 3 weeks old. And yes, that was a trauma for sure at a negative like 18 or something. But this part is the spirit of God. It's not at a negative impact level. There were other parts of split and had the negative impact level, but I recognize that this is God's spirit within me, surviving and fighting. So there's another part that's a conscious part. It's conscious now. And then Adventure Girl. This is the girl who likes to go out on adventures and goes rock climbing and hiking and takes walks through the woods, and I would do all these things alone by myself and wind up in pickles, or stuck on the ledge. I remember one time I was in, oh, where was I? I can't even remember, it was either El Paso or Arizona, but I went hiking. by myself, and I wound up on this ledge, and I couldn't get my way back up. And to go down, the only thing I could do was to put all of my weight on this teeny tiny little branch about the thickness of my finger. And I remember standing there just in a panic. Oh my God, am I going to die here? I can't get up. I can't get down. I can't, whatever. And I stood there. I said, dear God, please help me. I'm going to go down. I'm going to put all my weight on this little teeny tiny branch that anybody in the world would think would break, but I'm going to ask you to make it as strong as steel because I need this to get out of here. And I did it, and it was as strong as steel. And I got down. I get goosebumps talking about this, right? So spirit is a real thing. And Adventure Girl, was born in various different places, and spirit saved us during different things. So this is what I'm talking about in these journal entries, and you guys have got the gist of this. And I went into detail with it with Jon, and I believe it's the session that didn't record or somehow it got lost. We had technical issues, and the recording is just lost. But that's what's going on there. And now I will go into June 5th, and I'm trying not to go too long here. Okay, so it's June 5th at night. So once again, I'm laying in bed trying to go to sleep. Got that song Rich Girl going through my mind still. Was there for weeks. I remember that when Bitch, which is the part, was raped, they accessed Sailor, who's another sexual sex slave. And he had electricity involved with his sex stuff. They knew what he had done before, so they did it again. The Balistreri boy, the mobster people, and his friends that now Balistreri this is the grandson of the head mafioso guy in Milwaukee, which is interconnected with Chicago. So he was a big deal, but when I was living there, I was oblivious to it. And this is his grandson. And his friends that raped me put a penis in my mouth and one in my ass. And the girl is the one that electrocuted me. She also whipped my back to such a degree that I had mild lashes on my back. I had the hardest time trying to put ointment on them. I was living with mom at the time and I had to hide it. I was an adult, for God's sake. How to explain it? It took about a week for it to get to a stage where the skin was flaking off. I finally decided to ask Mom to help me. When she saw my back, she said, "It looks like you've been whipped." I said, "I think it's just a rash." She said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, that I must have eaten something that I was allergic to." So I've got a part in there that knows how to make up stories, which we should put that on here too. Gumby started showing me some things. Gumby is the part that was stretched on a rack. Now, again, I have had this part sitting there for the longest time, and it was the MK Ultra programming. And at the time of writing this, I thought that this was true, but this is again a wild goose chase. As I've later discovered, no, this was and like I don't know if it was an analytical overlay, but it was certainly not correct, or it hasn't revealed itself yet. But that time period has filled in pretty well. So I'm thinking this is a goose chase, my sabotage part that likes to take me off the track. They started off with twisting my thumb back. Now that did happen, but in different abuses. My thumb has been bothering me for about a week or two now with pain and numbness and tingling in it. I saw a split-second image of it a few days ago, but I didn't want to believe it. Oh. But they literally put me on a rack and stretched me. Now I understand how Dad could tell Mary that she would be torn limb from limb if she talked. That was Mary's curse from Grandma. That was also part of my dad's training of me. So, again, I don't know. I'll write this down. Stretched on rack. If I just haven't remembered this yet, but I've discovered that this part Gumby is something else entirely. And if this is a wild goose chase that my sabotage part was trying to take me down, or if it's actually real, because I say here, I saw a split-second image of it a few days ago. And so that's pretty clear if I saw it. I don't remember it now, but so it could be goose chase, it could not be. I don't know. Um, and then Deep Throat showed me that chair that looked like a dentist chair was solid metal, looks like stainless steel. They had me sit on it naked and my wrists and ankles were strapped to it. And I actually read this in my journal. I've done that video and it's ready to go, so I don't want to. Well, I guess maybe I should. They started off with mild electrocution. You see my part wanting to avoid here. They would ask me questions that I would not answer. Then they would up the volts. Again, I would not answer. Up the amps again and again and again. Deep Throat talked. She was a failure. She felt weak and dejected. They were pleased. I was lying in bed and literally started twitching and mildly convulsing for about 10 minutes when I had this memory. What they wanted to know if I was a plant. They wanted to know if I was some sort of spy. They were satisfied that I was not and that I was on their side, the US side. Then they stopped and sent me back to my room. I kept laying there thinking of going to get a cigarette, but I didn't want Chris to see me get out of bed just to get a cigarette and smoke. But finally, after 20 minutes of this, I did. So now I'm sitting smoking here dictating this. My hot flashes stopped for a while. Now they are back again for a few days. I believe it is connected with the electrocution. When they were satisfied that I was not a spy or a plant or come there to sabotage them, they finally let me go. My back has been itching a lot for several days now with bumps. I just assumed it was dry skin because summer was starting. But it's really from being lashed by that girl and also sitting on that chair being electrocuted. It was my naked skin against that metal. My entire body was being electrocuted at once. Dad never did that. They jammed a wooden dowel in the back of Deep Throat's mouth so it was behind my molars. And I put on, oh, this is the part Germany. Then it occurred to me why they pulled my molars in Germany. I went in for an impacted wisdom tooth, and the dentist told me that should have all four taken out. He told me that I have a small mouth with a lot of teeth and that I would have problems down the road with more impacted teeth. I said that all the others were already grown in. How could that be? Again, he was a doctor, so I believed him. He was part of the military commander rape, which I didn't know. My part Germany was the front personality, the promiscuous girl. He wanted to remove my back molars so that they could rape me easier without my teeth scraping on their dicks. That's why he wanted to do it. Because I was confused. I'm like, well, all my molars are grown in. Why would you need to pull them? There's nothing more to pull. Well, that was why. And I know I'm jumping back and forth between memories here, but that's just how it happened. So it's funny, when I went to my new dentist this year, she asked me about all my molars being pulled. I told her that they did that in the military. She just shook her head and said that that doesn't surprise me. That happened to a lot of people. So the back of my head and neck is hurting again. It's from when they electrocuted me. My body moved forward and my head would move back violently. There's a part in me screaming and crying. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. It was after I went back to my room after being interrogated. I would smoke trying to calm down, and I would be twitching and itching my skin and just crying and crying. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. It scratched my skin. I scratched my skin open a lot. I did that as a little girl too for years. And I remember at this point in time, leaving the army, and the last 6 months or so, I started scratching my legs like crazy, and I had scabs all over the place. And I remember wondering to myself, why am I doing this? I haven't done this for years, not since I was a kid. Well, this memory put two and two together for me. I don't know what part that is crying, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sure it's all of them. I told my parts to look through my eyes and see where they were or are. I had them look around the room and see that they were safe with me here. I hugged that crying young lady because Germany was like 22 years old. No, she was 19 and 20 years old. I thought I would be safe when mom divorced dad. How wrong I was. I wet myself when they were electrocuting me, and it made it even worse. It made my vagina electrocute even more. I was laying in bed and my vagina was itching a lot, the body memory. And I'm very hot right now. Chris popped his head in and asked me if I was okay. I told him yeah with a perfectly normal voice. But it made me feel better to know that he cared. I wanted to go and cuddle with him right now, but I'm afraid he will be irritated because it's 11:30 at night and he's been drinking all night and he's tired. So I'm on my own again, says Lonnie, her new name Laura. I decided to go out to lay down with Chris. I turned on the hall light. I went up to him. I called his name quietly, so I'm working up the courage here. I put my hand on his hip. He was fast asleep after only 5 minutes, so I came back to my room. Dixie followed me. Dixie's my dog. I hugged on her like I did with Taffy. It was my dog from childhood. But Dixie is so small I could not hug her like I did Taffy. Taffy was as big as me, so it was like hugging a person, the thing I wanted from Chris. As I hugged Dixie, I told my parts that I was hugging them. I cried and hugged them for a while. Germany, the promiscuous party girl, smoked cool menthol cigarettes. Everyone in the army smoked those. Lots of black people smoked menthol cigarettes in the army. Then she switched to cool light cigarettes. Then she switched to Virginia Slim 100s. Finally, we went off the menthols to Marlboros after Bitch was born. Siggy changed her brand as the parts changed. So this part that smokes for either anxiety or to hold back information or to give information, I have not figured it out yet. I was noticing that different parts of my life, I smoke different brands of cigarettes. So the parts like different types of cigarettes. Dad also stretched me in the basement, but he did not have a machine. He hung me from the pipes and then put ankle weights on me that hung down. He said that I will need this later. So this is a part called stretch, and I forgot that stretch had the ankle weights. So I need to add that in there. And this is 6-5B, 6. Okay. Lonnie is the one who made all the excuses to everyone who is not in the cult and noticed I was hurting or in pain and asked about it. She is the one that makes excuses to mom and everyone else. She is the one that made the excuses to Edward in El Paso when I was gone for 2 days. He said he had been looking for me and was worried, but that he was told I was on special duty. Lonnie told him what I was programmed to tell him, and that I was just tired. I realized also that Edward was tall and thin, just like Chris. Armstrong showed me that he was interrogated at a table for a long while. I was tired and hungry and thirsty and was given nothing. Armstrong was pushed around the room and shoved up against the wall with my thumb twisted behind my back. Armstrong's head was also shoved into toilet water. It's when I was gone for those 2 days and Edward was looking for me that all of that torture went on, to find out if I was a spy. After that is when I was replaced on guard duty and taken downstairs to be a sex slave. Now again, this is a lot of goose chasing. It's my part sabotaging me, telling me wrong stuff. I've later learned that Edward was my handler and he was asking me all these questions and so concerned because he wanted to see if I'd give up information. And the reason I was being tortured, I actually had three parts, one that was electrocuted, one that was waterboarded, and one that had interactions with chimeras, raped by a chimera, a dog man creature. Anyway, so all of that's kind of twisted and contorted in here. And so this was just a start to later on be able to flesh it out and get the correct, accurate details. But again, a part is sabotaging my memory. I said, it's all just so horrible. Thank you for showing me. I promise to have your back. We will do good things with this work. Deep Throat told the interrogators that if I was a spy, then why would I be getting out of the army? If I was a spy, I would stay in. That argument seemed to make sense to them after a long while of torture. Smarty Pants came through again. Lonnie relates with that song Rich Girl, So Far Gone Out in the Rain. Those are the lyrics. It ain't easy to take what you're giving me. That's the part of the lyrics. And so Lonnie was saying she relates with that. So far gone, out in the rain, it ain't easy to take what you're giving me. So the guard that replaced me winked at me as I walked towards the door to go downstairs. I thought that was odd. Now I realize that he was in on it. He was going to guard that door so that no one could interrupt us. He knew exactly what was going on. And as I came back out, he asked me and pressed me about what was going on down there. I assumed I passed the test because I didn't tell him anything. Now, Frog Legs is a promiscuous girl from high school. So this is probably 4 years earlier. Was at an outdoor party in Iowa as a teenager, and a grown man approached me. He told me that I looked just like someone in a town nearby and asked me if I knew her. He said that we could be twins. I didn't believe him, but he pulled a picture out of his pocket and showed me. He said, "Here, what do you think?" I was really taken aback because that girl did look a lot like me. I'm wondering now if he was showing me a picture of myself somewhere else in the cult that I did not remember. He was smirking. I walked away and hung out with my friends. He left. It was a test. And it never dawned on me until now working with my counselor. We're at a kegger party. There's like 16 to 20-year-olds there. What is this 50-year-old guy doing there? Not only that, but he's got a picture of me in his back pocket. Oh, the girl that looks just like you. Anyway, anyway, just as I was dropping off to sleep again, I got an image in my mind of my dad shoving my head into a toilet too. Now my adrenaline is rushing again. It's 1 a.m. So that would be dad, toilet, water. I have a part named Dog, but Dog never told me about this, so I'm thinking it's a split off dog while I was being a dog, or he just decided to shove my head in the toilet because he's a psychopath. Anyway, I think I'll end off this one. Well, let me see what's left here. Yeah, there's two more pages. Let me see how long they are. I think I will continue because I want to try and sync these up with the session, and I have that ready to go. So this will be a little long one. So 6th of June. So I woke up sleep deprived, and I keep thinking that my life is falling apart. It's not falling apart, but it's certainly disrupted. All of my routines are disrupted, and I feel like I just want to sit and do nothing all day. I'm smoking, I'm not working out, My plant care is slacking, and the house is not clean as often. I had Chris hug me a good long hug this morning before he went to work, so that felt better. That song keeps going through my head nonstop. I went out to beat up Ted. I figured that's an exercise for today. As I was beating Ted, I realized that the woman that ran the crystal shop, her name was Star, was using Krista as well. Now, Krista is my front part in the New Age. I remember the rich lady came in and I went to the back and hid. She came out to get me for her and I resisted. I was on the edge of tears and shaking, and Star hugged me and said, "Don't worry, I want you all to myself." She knew. I remembered she used hand signals on me as well. She allowed me to stay back there. It wasn't until we were living together. Now, this is in two different states. I didn't remember this yet, but this is in Milwaukee. And then I had left to escape all that, went to Texas, and she followed me. I'm not really sure why, but I think she was running from the mobsters in Milwaukee that she was manipulating, and she didn't make any money in her store. So, and she needed someplace to stay, so we were in Texas. So it wasn't until we were living together in Texas because she had nowhere to live and we had an argument over her fraudulent business. I confronted her on it. We had a huge argument. So she kissed me and tried to use her tongue. I pushed her off. It was so disgusting. And she was using me too. Glad I got a clue and kicked her out and got out of there. I know that I left there following Michael down to Texas, but I remember talking to her over the phone once. I was down there telling her I wouldn't be able to come back. She said that she knew, but I can't remember what happened after I kicked her out. Again, I'm mixing up two different states and two different time frames here. I remember being in my apartment alone and relieved, but then what came next? I can't remember. I know I left Milwaukee with Michael. I went up in Louisiana, wound up in Louisiana. That led me to Texas, TCBY, and Blockbuster Video, my jobs there. So what happened after I kicked her out? Did I go back to work and work with her? I can't remember. And I put many parts. At least I'm doing the laundry today. I just feel like sitting here doing nothing the rest of the day and smoke. I need to go to the store. And I also told Melissa I'm not going to work with her tomorrow because I'm frazzled. So that work is not getting done either. I made a commitment to that and now I'm not following through. Sh Yikes. Yeah. Well, whatever. It was what was going on at the time. My part was not happy. I said, but she also made a commitment. Has not been following through. She's just way too busy to be my friend, not the kind of friend that I need. And Chris is just way too distracted to be the husband that I need. Thank you, John, for being there. Thank you so much. Now, different parts are popping in and out here. Gummy had his thumbs pulled as a part of his interrogation. Also, that man in the Masonic Lodge in the library, after he and Wizzy played with energy, practiced moving it from him to me. Then he took both my hands and pushed the thumbs back quite painfully, and that was to instill what he had just done. So my mind's remembering all these incidents of my thumbs being screwed with. Now, these are three abortions that I had, and I'm not sure how or why, but I wanted to jot them down somewhere, and so I did here. Edward was the name of the boy. Now, this is not the same Edward from El Paso. This is another Edward that I met in Dallas. I was remembering the first time I got pregnant. I was freaked out and panicked. I knew that Edward was not going to be able to provide for us, nor did I want to marry him. It was 10 weeks when I got the abortion. And I remember lying there and they did the procedure and I felt the life leave my body. And I was so, so, so sad. I cried right there. The nurse held my hand and said that was normal. And then I would be, and that I would be okay. I felt so bad and guilty. My reasons were because I knew I would not be able to provide that child with the kind of life that I wanted to give it. I was also in a place where I knew that my issues and insecurities and lack of money would cause me to be overly stressed out, and I would relay that onto the child. I did not want to do that to that child. Jeff, the second time I got pregnant. I was dating Jeff, who had a very good job. Star, the same woman from the crystal source, set me up with him. Now this is when she's living with me and we're down in Texas. She thought he was a good match for me. We dated for a while. I got pregnant and he and I both agreed that abortion would be the answer. He broke up with me later. I remember asking him if there's anything I could say or do to change his mind. He said no. Shortly after that, he got married to a woman who was more of his social status. But Jeff was a nice man. I was upset one time about something and I was crying and I needed a handkerchief and he said to wipe it on his shirt. It was a starched white button-up shirt and I said, "No, I didn't want to ruin your shirt." He said, "Even if you're in trouble and I want to give you the shirt off my back." When he said that, then I agreed. I wiped my tears on his shirt and got it dirty. He didn't mind at all. He used to have a problem with profuse sweating all the time. It was very weird. So I'm just remembering the different details of these. So Nate, the third time I got pregnant was in Milwaukee with Nate. I remembered the swirling energy move into my body when I got pregnant. I knew instantly that life was created in that moment. The other two times I didn't know that, but with the last one I did. So the first abortion, I felt the life force leave me. The second pregnancy, I didn't really feel at all. I believe I suppressed it. The third pregnancy, I felt the creation of life. Nate wanted to keep the baby and work things out, but again, I knew that I wasn't prepared for it and that I would take it out on that baby, and I didn't want to do that. I always felt that those babies deserved better than me because I didn't have money or know how to even love a man or even myself, and how could I ever possibly love a baby and do a good job? I didn't want to raise a fucked up person. So there's that. We got a little water here, and there's one more, I think, short entry. And then I'll end off for today. I know it's a long one, but I'm trying to synchronize things. Is this the same one? Yes, it is. Let me see. Yeah, I read that one. Okay. So June 7. The dream I had this morning confused me until right now. Me and Chris and Angie and Mary were in the military, but we were in a barracks that looked more like an apartment building. No uniforms on, just street clothes. There were lots of other people, and everybody was prepping to leave to go to their next assignment. Everybody was packing up and getting ready, except for me, which I think is odd because I always prepare ahead. I kept thinking that I should get down to business like everyone else, but I wasn't. I wasn't concerned about it. I even wandered about the place for a while. I expressed some rage on a wall. In my dream, I'm doing a TED talk on a wall in my dream. And a couple of other people saw me and were laughing at me. I didn't care. All of the other people left except for Chris and me and Angie and Mary. They were all packed and ready to go, and I was still goofing around, looking around and walking around the apartment complex. Finally, it came down to the wire to leave, and I said, "I'm not ready." Angie and Mary had walked out, and Chris was waiting at the door. So, as an indication, my subconscious knew Angie and Mary didn't give a crap about me. But Chris was there waiting for me. So I dumped out my suitcase and began to sort the bad stuff out and keep the good stuff in. I knew I could do it very quickly. That's why I wasn't worried about it. All I needed was 5 minutes. I swear it took everyone else a long time. As I quickly as I quickly sorted is when I woke up. I realized the dream is a representation of what I'm doing with SRA right now. When I was ready, I was able to look at all the bad and all the good, sort it quickly, and to be ready. Angie and Mary were already gone on their way as well as everyone else, and Chris was waiting for me at the door. I knew that I was just right at the perfect time to go with Chris at my side. So I'm glad I'm ending off with that. That's a nice note to end off on. Chris at my side. Because he's my man and I love him. Um, so that's a lot. And then, like I said, I missed, we lost the session in between. So that's why there's so much journal and then a session. 'Cause I don't even remember what happened. I think I forgot to hit the record button, one of my parts. So, and that's okay. So I'll let y'all go. Thanks for listening. I know this could be triggering and upsetting, and you're still sitting through it. So I commend you. It's the tr this is how I think of triggers. Is I don't mind getting triggered. A trigger is a part getting your attention. It's they're saying, I'm freaked out. That happened to me. And this is how it makes me feel. And I don't like it. And it's getting your attention. And I know that you can tend to go into an overwhelm of anxiety or even, a panic attack in certain scenarios. But right when that happens, write down as much as you possibly can. Just write whatever gibberish comes out of you. Write, journal. So I commend you for listening and, getting triggered. And I apologize for it too. I'm sorry. I know it's painful, but we've got to face what we went through in order to regain our full consciousness. Because really, isn't that what life is about in the end, is being as fully conscious as possible? Not getting as much money as you can, not having all the stuff you want or whatever. And life is about family and having children and all that, but I don't have children. But for me, this journey and remembering, I want to remember every single second of my life. I want to know every single part. I want them co-conscious with me because they give me strength. They give me wisdom. They give me street smarts. They give me psychic abilities. They give me intuitions. They give me all the things they had to do to and felt and saw and figured I had to learn how to survive and walk through that shadow of death and make it out. I want that consciously. You know what I mean? It's strong, it's confident, it's because as they all know each other, they know, hey, Jesus is going to protect us, and we have these skills, and together we're unstoppable. So anyhow, I'll let y'all go. God bless you. I pray for your journey to keep moving, give you as much insight as possible, for God to surround you with his love, impenetrable shields of his love, with his holy angels standing guard, with his warrior angels there for you in times of spiritual warfare, to bind all powers, principalities, and spiritual wickedness in all places on all planes of existence, to block astral projection, to bind any and all interference with your healing path. So God bless you. I love you. Thanks for coming along with me and have a great day. Bye.